Hey everybody, it's another one of Corey's Car Chronicles. I think I said it right, Corey's Car Chronicles, the Triple C. I think this isn't normal. I don't think I usually I don't do like 2 videos a week. I know I just did one. I believe it was it yesterday? I put up one. I'm not for certain, but I try to make videos of what's on my mind, or if I see something happening and I have a point of view regarding it. But I was just sitting at home this morning before I went to work. I've been off work for basically since Valentine's Day all the way up to today. I've been off work, so I've been doing a lot of reflecting and thinking. As some of you know, my mother's been not doing the best or whatever, so I was thinking about that and just thinking about other things. But I was thinking about something that I was actually discussing some time ago with a friend, and I was talking about this video is basically for people who probably has children or who are instrumental in helping, guide young people and children, into adulthood. And I just wanted to say, don't advise, instruct, and raise young people and children based on when you were their age, but learn what the overall general subjects are and raise them on that. I say that because I remember growing up, and this isn't a jab at any, because I was raised by 3 beautiful black women: my mother, my maternal grandmother, and my great aunt, my grandmother's younger sister, who is also my godmother. These are 3 primary people in my life. And they're going to raise you. You're going to be raised based on the best thing that people can tell you as far as information. But just looking over my life and everything, I recognize, and this is in general too, because a lot of us don't know this, there were some basic topics that I just did not know about. Even in my 30s is when I started finding out some things. I'm not out of my 30s now, but even up to a few years ago, there are some things that I'm finding basically about life that I was never informed of, that I had not prepared for. And it was due to other number of reasons. But the reason why I'm making this video, I just want to encourage people to raise children and young people, teenagers, young adults, inform and advise them on overall general topics. What you definitely want to inform and advise them on is to read and research. Pay attention to how things are changing. The reason why I say this is because when I was growing up, I was told, you go to school, you have perfect attendance at school, you get good grades, then you go to college, you get a job, work that job till you retire, and everything that's perfect with life. As I got older, and actually I found this out through different jobs that I actually worked in, that's not how life works, because that worked when my mother was around my age. That worked around the time when my grandmother and my great aunt was around my age. So this is the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and early 80s. But things started changing after the 90s. You can go to school all day and get good grades. That doesn't mean you'll have success in college. You can go to college and have success. That doesn't mean you're going to get a good job. Nowadays, we're realizing, first of all, school is much more expensive now than it was even 20 years ago, in comparison to the average income and the cost of education. Because I worked in higher education and higher education administration, and one thing I noticed, I noticed that the cost of education was going up maybe 20, 30, 40, sometimes even 50% every year or every 2 years, whereas the financial aid that was offered will go up maybe 1% or something like that. So just from one year to the next, you saw a great change in the price of tuition. If you had 2 children and they were a year apart, you would see a great change. If they went to the same school, the one went one year and the other one went the next year, you would see a change in how much you would have to pay. And that's just in 1 year. So that takes into consideration. Also, higher education isn't necessarily now about just educating children. It's about trying to get them in the door so they can collect the money. Just to be honest, that's in general what it's about. Also, you get a degree. It used to be a time where if you got a certain degree, that almost guaranteed you a job making a certain amount of money. And many of you know, I've worked jobs where I was making less than 40 and 50K, and I only have an associate's degree, but I was working with people who had master's degrees. and bachelor's degrees, and they were making the same amount. And I remember when we were in higher education, our team members, not with team members, with students, where we say, hey, if you get an associate's, it's almost guaranteed you'll be able to make $40,000. And if you get a bachelor's, then it's guaranteed you make 50 to 60. You get a master's, it's guaranteed you make 70 to 80. And that's what we were saying. I stopped saying it because I realized that wasn't true. Things were changing. Also, just working jobs. We used to, you're always advised, you get a job, you keep that job, and you work that job and retire with that job, and make sure you put in on your 401k. Jobs are not as loyal to workers as they used to be. Jobs are not as loyal to workers as they used to be. I worked a job before where I remember the job went through a mass laying off people, and there was no criteria to how they were laying off people. I don't even know what they were using because it was so random. It was vice presidents being laid off, presidents, workers. It was people who had been there for 30 years being laid off, all the way down to somebody who had been there a year. I didn't know if my job was in jeopardy, but it wasn't apparently. But jobs are not loyal. The main things that I say people should be able to understand, what you should teach them, is to understand overall information, such as, I will say one thing I think everybody should learn. And I have a younger sister, and I used to talk to my younger brother. All my younger brothers and sisters are much younger than me, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16 years younger. And when they graduated from high school, they asked me. Now, when I graduated from high school, I was told, go to college, be a doctor or a lawyer, and do that. It did not work that way. I went to a city public school. City public school does not prepare you for universities. And I dropped out after my first semester because I was overwhelmed. I was also trying to work. I was poor. I'm still kind of poor, but I'm just playing. But I told my brothers and sisters when they graduated, I'm like, what do you want to do? What are you saying? I had one sister who said she didn't know what she wanted to go to school for, but she was doing hair. So I said, well, that's one thing that you're doing. If you have that skill, get certified for it. I encourage all young people, everyone, to develop a skill. I mean, I don't care if it's, and this is male or female. I'm not depending on what gender. It could be plumbing, it could be carpentry, it can be masonry, it can be doing hair or cutting hair. Anything that is a technical skill, I encourage everyone to get that. That's something I wish I would have done. I'm trying to do it now. But that's something I wish I would have done, because you would never be without a way to make a living if you're if you have a skill. If you have a skill, you'll still make money. If you're certified, you'll always make money. There's nothing that you can't do, because those are things that people will always need. Mechanics, plumbers, carpenters, pipe fitting, hairstylists, any type of skill, even accounting. I always encourage young people for that. Then when it comes to money management, I always encourage young people to look into it to see what they need to do. I don't tell everybody save, because saving isn't the main way where you could do things. You know what I'm saying? Saving isn't the main way. Investments is a good way, but how you invest, But I try to encourage people just on basic things, no matter what you do, whatever job you work, whatever school you go to, try to do your best. Understand what is for you and what isn't. I had a brother who didn't want to go to school. He didn't feel like it was for him. And my parents were trying to force him to go. And I was like, don't force him to go. I said, because it's not like back in our day where you could just go to school and don't work. You just leave and then you can go back like 10 years later, because they put a cap on the Pell Grant. You can only go for a certain amount of years. I was like, don't let him use up the money that he might be able to get. And he doesn't know what he wants to do, because he's just going to be sitting there. And then you do better when you go to school, when you know what you want to do. I encourage parents, if your children are sophomores, juniors, and seniors, start asking them now what careers they're interested in. Look at their grades. Most times students and young people tell you what they're good at just off their grades. Do not discourage students from pursuing careers in arts. If they're great at art, they can get a career in art, even if they're in music. Because I was big in music, but I was told not to go to school for it. But I could have been a music teacher. I could have been a composer. I could have worked for a symphony and things like that, So it's a lot of different things that young people could do. But I just wanted to make this video to just encourage parents not to raise your children for yesterday, but to raise them for the future. And we have to pay attention. That requires you to have some insight and to do some research on your own. Because we have to better equip our young people, especially our minority young people, our black young people, especially them. But that's all with Corey's Car Chronicles. That was all that was on my mind. Shout out to everybody that subscribed. Once again, everybody pray for my mom. Thank y'all. Bye.